I travel back in time too, when my sworn enemy was a child. To disgust my sworn enemy, I said that I was his future wife and became his first love. Before leaving, I even touched his head and lied to him, "Brother, buy me a cup of milk tea. I'll be back soon." This sentence made him wait for 10 years. Later, my sworn enemy became an even crazier and sickly possessive person than me. He locked me on the bed and sneered coldly, "Wife, trying to run again? I guess the cup of milk tea you want to drink is thick cream tea." When I am the villain in a romance novel, a vicious male supporting character, I love to be crazy, insane, and neurotic. The only thing is that I can't get the female lead and am therefore labeled as sickly possessive. And Sean, the sworn enemy I hate the most in my life, is actually the affectionate male second lead that the audience likes the most. I spat out a mouthful of old blood and asked the system why. He explained that because Sean is the child of high-ranking officials who grew up in a large compound, while my family has been in business for 3 generations and our hands are not entirely clean. That's right. My family is involved in both legal and illegal activities. Growing up in an environment of fighting and killing, my personality is indeed impossible to be gentle and obedient. So the female-led, Yolanda, is afraid of me and doesn't want me. The ending of a vicious villain is be doomed to be killed. On the verge of death, I tried my best to crawl to Sean's feet. I wiped the blood from the corner of my mouth with the back of my hand and looked up and smiled at him. "You kneel down." There was a crack in Sean's always calm face. He be on the verge of speaking but stopped short. The male-led, sane, has already left. There are only the 2 of us left in the gloomy basement. In an absolute victorious posture, he looked down on me condescending. But in the end, he still pursed his lips and knelt down on one knee. "Henry, do you have any last words?" There was a hint of blood in the air. After I laughed twice loudly, I suddenly grabbed his suit tie. There was a tie clip on it that Yolanda gave. Sean cherished it very much. Without hesitation, I kissed it. For no other reason than to disgust him. In his stunned and shocked eyes, I also leaned close to his face and kissed him. "I'll tell you a secret. The person I, Henry, like, has always been you." 3 After saying that, the drug took effect and I completely lost my breath. My sworn enemy covered his right cheek, that had been kissed and was stunned in place for a long time. Those words were still just to disgust him. Sean is naturally cold-hearted and extremely afraid of homosexuality. Being able to see him so shocked by me before I died doesn't count as my victory? But I didn't expect that after I kissed him, Sean suddenly picked me up and ran to the hospital like crazy. Along the way, he was still wiping the blood on my face and murmuring, and begging me not to die. "Huh. You still want to continue torturing me to a living death?" I spat at him twice and asked the system where I should go after death. After having a great time, an even better thing came. The system told me that I would be reborn soon. Could this be a skill of the ultimate villain Big Boss? Before I could think more, the system also said that because I was tortured so badly by the male-led and the male second-led in my previous life, I also got a chance to travel through time in this life. Any time, any place. Super wings. Handling cases seriously? I sneered. After dying, I felt refreshed. In my previous life, living was like being stuck in traffic, being imprisoned in the city, and fish dying in the sea. Competing with Sean for a lifetime was too tiring. So in this life, I don't want to compete with him anymore. For as my soul gradually separated from the real world, my feelings for Yolanda were also disappearing. Now I still can't understand. Just because she gave me 2 candies and wiped tears for me in childhood, how could I have begged for love all my life and harmed so many innocent people? I don't understand and I don't respect. Henry in the book is an idiot. But since they all want Yolanda, I'll just give her up. In this life, I won't compete anymore. But this doesn't mean that I won't take revenge. Sean and I are natural sworn enemies. Even if we are no longer rivals in love, we are still competitors in business. The most controversial power holders at the north and south ends of Zhongcheng. Sean and I will always loathe each other. Until death do us part. If we don't die, we won't stop. So for the time of traveling through time, I chose when Sean was 10 years old. That was the first time he met Yolanda. 5. My plan is very simple. Become Sean's first love. Then hide my identity and defeat him personally. When his world is only left with his first love, I will reveal my identity and crush him mentally. I was extremely excited and could even imagine that scene many years later. Sean was made destitute by me and walked on the street in poverty. But he still missed his spiritual pillar. His unforgettable first love. I appeared at the right time and showed the keepsake. Leaning close to his ear, I whispered like a devil, "Were you just thinking of me?" What a perfect revenge plan. In this life, I must make him live in agony too. 6. With this obsession, I traveled through time. When I traveled to Sean's family compound, Sean was being suppressed and bullied by his elder brothers. The system said that in this stupid making effectual romance novel, there is no law to speak of. So no one around called the police and there were still many people watching. I glanced at the century-old plaque of Sean's family. I thought that the so-called integrity and honesty are nothing more than this. Have you guys beaten enough? Before Sean was beaten to death, I appeared instead of the female lead. The female lead was stopped outside the alley by a little trick of the system. I traveled through time with my 24-year-old body. So among these kids who are at most 15 years old, I am quite intimidating. They paused the ruler in their hands and asked who I was. Sean's family affairs. Outsiders can't interfere. As expected of a cultured person. Bullying is so elegant. I squatted down to check Sean's wounds. But he stubbornly pushed me away. Don't touch me. Oh. He is still as aloof as always. If it weren't for having a plan in advance, I would have wanted to grab the ruler and spank his butt. Unfortunately, I didn't do that. I just took out a small knife and showed the sharp dagger. I used it to lift the chin of the boy in the lead. Whether you are his eldest brother or his second uncle, from today on Sean is under my protection. 7. The system said that my lines were too cheesy. I clicked my tongue. Are they cheesier than the lines of the perverted and sickly possessive person in the book? The system shook its head vigorously. After easily saving Sean, I learned the reason for what happened. It turned out that these children of aristocratic families couldn't stand Sean always showing off in order to compete for favor. So they found an excuse. Among Sean's 7 children, 5 are of different mothers. But as long as they enter the yard, they all have to call the eldest brother's mother Mom. But the youngest Sean doesn't. So, lead by that eldest brother. Along with several younger brothers under him. They collectively taught him a lesson. They didn't let him eat at the table. After finishing work after school, he would be beaten brutally. At this moment, Sean has just returned to Sean's family. His father doesn't value him much. So he turns a blind eye. Just ordered, just don't kill him. How ridiculous. Opening the door is a century-old aristocratic family that is respected by thousands of people. Closing the door is a decadent and corrupt feudal old-fashioned person. I didn't expect that you look so glamorous. It turns out that your situation, when you were a child, is almost the same as mine. I casually bought a bag of oranges and threw one to Sean. This guy's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. He was a poker-faced person when he was a child. Who are you exactly? I don't want your things. Remembering his later deeds of being afraid of homosexuality, I blurted out, I am your wife. Little Sean stopped in his tracks. His face darkened, and then darkened again. Finally, he showed an indescribable expression. Like eating shit. I really couldn't help but laugh. Bending over and laughing. If I had known that he was so afraid of homosexuality, I would have disgusted him like this earlier in my previous life. Anyway, I have always been shameless and will do anything to achieve my goal. When I laughed until my stomach hurt, I leaned close to his ear again. Honey, do you like your future wife? Honey, say something. Honey. This time I successfully disgusted Lil Sean. Sean at the age of 10 is quite short. Now I am several heads taller than him. Remembering that I always lost in height in my previous life and the feel wronged and frustrated of being pressed against the wall, and having my head held down by Sean during a fight. I must take revenge. After inviting Sean home, I bought him a new set of clothes. The system is simply my rich daddy. It directly gave me a villa at the north end of Zhongcheng. At this time, I am 14 years old, and am being pulled to study abroad everywhere. So there is no need to worry about running into each other. According to the original plot, after the female maid who grew up in the neighboring compound saved him and took him home, she also changed him into clean clothes and treated him to a good meal. Then, with the follow the leader style redemption, she influenced him for half a year, and then went abroad to study. The female-led thus became Sean's first love in his heart and the spiritual core for him to climb to the peak of power step by step. I just need to follow suit. But when forcing him to change clothes, the scars on this child were truly shocking. New wounds mixed with old scars from years ago covered his entire back. I always thought that these were only there when he grew up. I didn't expect him to have them at such a young age. Pervert. Seeing that I was always staring at his back, Sean put on his clothes with a look of contempt on his face, covering his scars all over. I was speechless and laughed. I actually forgot to retort. That night I made a big table of delicious food. Sean hasn't eaten at the table for 3 years. Every time he holds a bowl and squats by the doghouse to eat. After I invited him to the table, I joked with a smile, "Is your future wife good to you?" He pursed his lips and said nothing. What a stubborn donkey. Later, for several days in a row, I followed behind Sean to protect him. Those kids in Sean's family compound originally wanted to fight me. They found a group of younger brothers, holding sticks, daggers, and various weapons. I was too lazy to do it myself. I directly showed them the video of them bullying Sean and smiled kindly. Guess what will happen if I post this thing online and send it to your father's superior? The other kids didn't understand. But Sean's eldest brother understood. Seeing my high-profile clothes, he knew that I had a wealthy background. So he gritted his teeth and apologized and promised me that he wouldn't bully Sean anymore. I happily gave him 2 candies and asked him to remember to keep his promise. But this made Sean unhappy. On the way back to the villa with him, he had a face that was so conflicted and somewhat distorted. He turned his head and pulled at the corner of my clothes. Me? Sean bit his lip and opened his mouth with difficulty. In the future. Wife. Where's my candy? 10 No. Why did he take it seriously? The system was gloating on the side, laughing at me for going too far. Frightened, I quickly explained that I was lying to him before and asked him to change his address to brother, who knew that Sean had a big temper, and was unhappy again. After following him for 2 more days, I finally had a chance to talk to him. In fact, the candies I gave those kids before were all expired. I bought a new can. Pink packaging. After taking the candy, "You have to call me brother from now on. Don't call me randomly anymore. Okay?" After hearing this, Sean's half-extended hand suddenly retracted. Me. In the end, I forced the candy into his hand. Looking at Sean's wounds disappearing day by day, I began to wonder how the progress of the strategy was going. In just 2 months, it's 70% already. Daddy's system is very happy. Only I am puzzled. Why is it only 70%? Didn't Sean call me future wife before? If he has admitted my identity, why is it only 70? Host. The scheming and affectionate male second lead is very good at pretending the system said that I haven't walked into Sean's heart yet. This really made me angry and laugh. A 10-year-old kid. How can he have such deep thoughts? But when I secretly followed him to school, I was shocked. It turns out that Sean is simply a white cut black. 11 actually. Sean is quite good at fighting, although he is short and small in stature. His boxing and kicking skills are really good. A left hook, a turn and a right leg kick. Good guy. He knocked down a bunch of people. Host. Don't applaud him anymore. I was stunned. I quickly put my hands back in my pockets and asked the system with an awkward smile what was going on. Since he is so good at fighting, why would he still let those cheap brothers of his bully him? The system was not ambiguous, because Sean's family is a place where people can be devoured without bleeding. Oh. Right. I have been flamboyant all my life and almost forgot. Being able to fight in Sean's family is nothing. Their family likes to play dirty tricks. So Sean pretends to be weak and acts stupid. Always ranking at the bottom of his grade. Unlike me, who climbed to the position of heir through fighting and seizing by force, since I was young. No wonder. I suddenly realized. No wonder the female lead didn't choose me. Even the gentle and rich Sean is not wanted. It turns out that she has long seen that he is not so simple. Thinking like this, I glanced at the playground not far away through half a wall. Unexpectedly. Speaking of the devil arrives. Under the camphor tree. Yolanda is tearing off a band-aid and treating Sean's wound. I am having a heart attack. But in the blink of an eye, Yolanda went to comfort another person who was crying. Truly worthy of being the female lead of a redemption story. Really. Very busy. But when I picked up Sean from school, I casually asked where the band-aid came from. But he lied to me. 12 Sean said that the band-aid was bought by himself. I smiled and didn't expose him. The next day, I bought a box of band-aids and gave them to him. With a professional smile. I said, now you don't have to buy it yourself. Right, Sean? In the next few months, I tried my best to be more flatterer than the female lead. Finally, one day, I moved the always awkward Sean and made him willingly call me brother. It's a pity that the system told me that the progress of the strategy for Sean always remained at 80%. Damn it. The remaining 20% is because I am male. I was so angry that I jumped up and cursed Sean. This homophobic jerk. Fortunately, the system also said that this 80% progress is enough for Sean to remember me for 10 years. I was overjoyed. Immediately, I picked a good day and was ready to leave. On that day, the sky was clear and the spring breeze was gentle in the northern part of Zhongcheng. I was wearing a flamboyant leather jacket and driving a red sports car. I came to pick up someone for the last time at the elementary school gate. Sean walked alone with his school bag on his back, standing out from the bouncing elementary school students around him. I showed off ostentatiously, and directly put my arm around his shoulder. Sean no longer blushes and says men and men should not touch each other now. He just naturally asks, "Is there something happy today?" I nod and then shake my head. I ask him in return, "If I suddenly leave one day, will you be sad or happy?" Sean pauses and doesn't speak while pulling on his blue and white school uniform. Look. This cold-hearted look. Maybe less than 2 months after I died in my previous life. He completely forgot about me. If you ignore me, then forget it. I force out a heartless smile and rub Sean's head. Brother is going to buy a cup of milk tea across the street. I'll be back soon. 13 The system has erased my appearance from Sean's memory. He only remembers that there is such a person as me. What I did. And how long I was his flatterer. But to be honest, I am quite curious. In the original plot, the female lead was forced to study abroad and made a promise to Sean that she would definitely come back. But I had no reason and disappeared for a full 10 years for no reason. So absurd. I don't know whether in the future I will become his first love or sworn enemy. 14 I traveled back to the year when I was 24. When I woke up on the plane, the system said that the previous plot remained unchanged. After Yolanda left Sean and went abroad, she met me and redeemed me. Over the years, I have fallen in love with her. Therefore, I chose to accompany her back to China, and take over the domestic business by the way. At the same time, Sean has already become enemies with me and become my sworn enemy. What happened later was the path of my self-destructs in my previous life. The air conditioning in the office suddenly woke me up. When I opened my eyes again, the person standing opposite was actually Sean, wearing a suit and leather shoes. Tall and straight. He has grown so fast. Before I could finish sighing, I was suddenly grabbed by the neck by him with bloodshot eyes and questioned through gritted teeth. Henry, did you kill that person? What person? This male's supporting character is still quite confused. Host. It's the male model you ordered at the bar before. The male second lead's high school classmate. After being rescued by him, he disappeared for no reason again. The system thoughtfully helped me recall. So it is. Speaking of this, I'm really angry. Back then, Sean made a big fuss in my office because of this duck. I was so angry that I directly admitted that I killed the person. But in fact, this has nothing to do with me at all. I couldn't bear it anymore. I desperately leaned close to Sean's face and kissed him directly. 15 Sean. He was so frightened, and that he immediately loosened his strength. You. I can't disgust you to death. In his moment of hesitation, I wiped the corner of my mouth. With quick eyes and hands, I directly punched him in the face. After being a flatterer for more than half a year, today I settle old scores and new grudges together. Now that Sean is so grown up, it's not child abuse anymore. Do you have evidence? Just come to me. Idiot. He was completely confused by my crazy actions. Covering his face, he repeated like an idiot, You. Are you playing with me? Henry. You what you? Are you super male? As soon as you come, you grab my neck? I am a good citizen. I didn't kill anyone. Damn it. Are you disgusted by being kissed by your sworn enemy? Yes. That's right. What I am disgusting is you. I ranted nonstop and even made Sean's poker face collapse. After a long time, he covered the half of his face that was reddened by the kiss and gritted his teeth and spat out a few words. When you disgust other annoying people, do you also use kisses? Yes. So what? In this new life, I still can't change my habit of talking big. You. Sean, a cold and domineering president, was almost disgusted to the point of collapse by me. In the end, he heavily hit my desk and left with a wave of his sleeve. 16 On the way home that day, I asked Secretary Yang to report to me about the situation in Zhongcheng in the past 2 years. Sean's family has a background to support them and dominates Zhongcheng alone. My useless elder brother is constantly suppressed by the newly appointed Sean in various ways. As for me, I am still immersed in how to win Yolanda's heart and completely ignore Sean. This rising star. I only regard him as a strong rival in love. I heard that President Sean also has a first love. Since he took office, he has been looking for someone everywhere and has turned Zhongcheng upside down. But it is said that the information he gave is a bit strange. He said that he loves eating oranges, likes to wear flamboyant jackets, drinks and smokes, and has a mole on his waist. It sounds a bit like a man, but not really. The driver added to Sean's information like gossiping. Oh, he is indeed no longer Yolanda's affectionate male second lead. But I can't help but want to laugh when I hear it. After all, his sworn enemy just beat him up. I am very curious. What expression will he have when he finds out that his first love is his sworn enemy? 17 The next day, the company needed to send a representative to bid for a piece of land. My second elder brother, Max, sneered and gave this position to me, in the name of giving me a chance to practice after playing for so long. After the meeting, Secretary Yang looked at the competitors above and gasped. President Max, should we give this project to someone else? Damn it. I snatched the project plan. From today on, I will teach our little President Sean how to be a good person again. The bidding time was set for the afternoon 2 days later. I didn't even have time to eat lunch and rushed over after preparing the materials overnight. A person opposite the conference table was wearing a neat suit and had already regained his usual coldness and sharpness. With a cold look in his eyes. Henry? When he looked up and saw that it was me, He frowned and suddenly got up and rushed straight to me. Then he raised his hand. And straight in my deep V-shirt collar. Your collar is so open. Are you being flirtatious? Huh. I was amused by his words. Immediately, I pulled down his tie and hooked my lips and leaned close enough for our breaths to intertwine. I'm being flirtatious for you to see. Little old-fashioned, don't you like it? 18. I swear I said that just to disgust him. Sean was indeed disgusted by me. He retreated like being shocked and returned to his seat. After I sat down, I deliberately lifted and pulled down my collar. This action made Sean's face on the opposite side stiffen and then redden, as if he had been slapped several times. Fun. With the experience of my previous life, the bidding process was also very smooth. But Sean, who failed in the first bidding, didn't angrily say harsh words afterwards. There was not even a hint of disappointment on his face, let alone the downfall of a loser. The system comforted me not to be angry. There will be plenty of opportunities to humiliate him in the future. Yes. Right. So that night, I went to the bar where Sean was negotiating cooperation to dance. In the box next door to him, I ordered 10 male models in one go. 19. I still remember that last time I ordered male models for my gay friend to play with. But I happened to order Sean's high school classmate. I spent 100,000 yuan. And my gay friend didn't even get to touch him before he was rescued by Sean. I ask you. This time I ordered 10 male models for my gay friend, so that he can have enough fun. Dad Henry. You are truly my godfather. York was extremely grateful for my spending behavior, and almost kowtowed to me. I waved my hand. Good brother. It's nothing in my previous life. After I was brought down by the male lead and the male second lead, all my friends who were just having fun together didn't help me, and were even afraid to avoid me. Only York, who grew up with me since childhood and whose family is not very wealthy, took out all his savings and gave them to me for turnover. Later, when I was caught and put in the basement, even Max's family had given up looking for me. Only he was still insisting. So in this life, I have to be good to him. After you've had enough fun, let's go on a trip to relax in 2 days. York touched his abdominal muscles and narrowed his eyes. Who do you think you are? Are you really trying to be my dad? Suddenly being so nice to me. I rubbed my sour nose. No. I just missed you. Henry. Who are you missing? A my roar from the door startled me so much that I quickly hugged the thin waist of a male model. Sean's face immediately became darker than the bottom of a pot. He rushed over and pulled away the male model on me. Henry. Since you've seduced me, why do you still dare to hug them? 20. It's none of your business. York remembered Sean's face and was immediately unhappy. I thought who it was. So it's our Henry's sworn enemy. Get out. Although he is not as tall as Sean, he is merciless when pushing people. The two of us pushed Sean onto the sofa together. Then we continued to hug the male model and drank up the margarita in one gulp. Little President Sean. Don't tell me there's another one here who is your classmate. Tonight I spent a lot of money. If you're sensible. Then my lips were suddenly blocked and bitten open. Sean actually kissed me through the male model on me. So bitter. The smell of tobacco mixed with the bitter taste of alcohol. It doesn't match at all. It wasn't until I was almost suffocated that Sean was pulled away by York, who was cursing. His personal secretary outside the door was dumbfounded. President Sean. He said that if he didn't go back soon, the cooperation would be ruined. Sean once again roughly pulled away the male model on me and told me to wait here obediently. Before leaving, he took off his cufflinks and firmly pinned them on the V-neck on my chest. Crazy. Only a dog would wait for him. 21. We drank until midnight. And the door of the box was never opened again. York was worried about me and insisted on drinking with me. But I still asked him to play with the male model and drove him away. What could happen? I won't die anyway. Anyway, there is still the system. This living daddy. To revive me. System. I must take revenge on Sean. Yes. Yes. Take revenge on him. He just disgusted me so much. I must definitely disgust this bitch to death later. Yes. Yes. Disgust him. Such a perfunctory living daddy. Drinking on an empty stomach. I really felt a bit uncomfortable. When the stomach pain was really unbearable, I put down the wine glass and curled up on the sofa, sweating coldly. It seemed like the feeling of being poisoned to death in my previous life. Henry? Henry. Wake up. In a daze. I felt my body become lighter. Someone picked me up from the sofa. Kept chattering in my ear. Don't sleep, and wake up. The strong light shone on my eyes. Then I was pricked with a few needles. I have never been very sensitive to pains since I was a child. I will definitely not show it if I can endure it. So people around me think that I am not afraid of pain and laughingly call me a monster. My family also uses me as a sharp weapon that won't get hurt. But for some reason tonight, my heart is inexplicably blocked. Just having a few blood vessels pricked by a nurse made me frown and struggle in pain and groan. Then, I suddenly fell into a warm embrace. 22 During the few days when I was locked in the basement, Sean never showed up. But from Zane's mouth, I learned a lot of things. For example, the person who proposed the plan to kidnap me in the first place was Sean. The person who knocked me unconscious and tied me to the basement was also Sean. The person who came up with these torture methods and wanted to torture me to death was still Sean. When I was tortured to a living death by Zane, I still arrogantly cursed and told Sean to come over if he had the guts and torture me himself if he had the guts. I thought Sean couldn't do it because he didn't even dare to kill a chicken. Because we are competitors, and we have to compete for victory or defeat all our lives. Because he once tried to save me who was controlled by Max's family. He wanted to save me. But Zane told me that Sean would soon bring imported poison, and give me a quick end. He knew I didn't believe him. So he played a recording. It was Sean's voice. The content was the same as what Zane said. At the moment when the bitter medicine was forcibly poured into my throat, I thought, forget it. Just forget it in this life. I'm too lazy to struggle. Anyway, dying is also very refreshing. There will be no more pain. 23 When I opened my eyes again, it was an empty street. The person carrying me on his back was bumping under the dim streetlight. My head was groggy and my stomach was churning. It was a bit uncomfortable. I continued to curl up on his back and was too lazy to move. Are you awake? Sean noticed. I said, Henry. I'm sorry. It seems that I have wronged you about many things before. Regarding the disappearance of that male model in the bar before. I found him later. Someone deliberately photoshopped the surveillance video and framed you. You haven't killed anyone or abused animals. It was my fault to blame you. I'm sorry. I know that saying sorry is useless. So I will compensate you. What compensation do you want? He talks so much. Never has there been so much. I didn't answer. Sean said, I'm sorry again. We were silent. When we reached the gate of a villa, it suddenly began to snow lightly in Zhongcheng, fluttering and falling. Everything was pure white. I reached out to catch it, but almost slipped off his body. Sean lifted my thigh. His voice was colder than snow. Catch it. But I didn't want to catch it anymore. I just put my hand back and sobbed on his shoulder. Sean. You dog. 24 I was sick at Sean's house for a week. On the 7th day, I could finally eat fried chicken, hamburgers, pizza, and ice cream. Although I don't know why I have to listen to him. Probably because he is too much like an old mother, constantly nagging about doctor's orders. My ears are almost getting calluses. But when he came home from work that day, he bought me a cup of milk tea. Testing me? I was startled and didn't dare to take it. The first cup of milk tea in winter. Don't you want it? Appetite overcame reason. Yes. But ever since I took this cup, thick cream tea? After that, Sean always wanted to lift my clothes, which made me always be on guard, afraid that he would see my waist. That's my trump card. If Sean wants to kill me again in this life, I will show this trump card after he kills me, and make him regret for life. The system suddenly popped up and sighed. Baby. Being a love-struck person is giving in for nothing. Me, what? 25. It was too dangerous to stay at Sean's house. So I still moved back. This idiot would come to my house every day to deliver meals and tell me to eat on time. So sentimental. 2 weeks later, the business circles in Zhangcheng began to be in a state of panic. Because of a business dinner. As the person most likely to become the next heir of the Max family, I was invited to that dinner. At the same time, the male-led Sane also came. 26. What kind of person is Sane? If 50% of my heart is black and 70% of Sean's, then Sane is 99%. 27. In the high-end banquet hall, people were coming and going in an endless stream. Without the interference of me and Sean, the male and female leads quickly got together smoothly. Sean came from the neighboring Yancheng 3 months ago and brought a big business deal to discuss at the same time. This business deal couldn't be exposed to the light. So at first he didn't choose Sean, who came from a political background. He chose me, whose position was not very stable, and was rumored to have dirty means. As expected, not long after the banquet began, Sean came over with a glass of champagne to strike up a conversation. Every sentence sounded no different from an ordinary businessman. And even everywhere it showed his advanced insight as a new business tycoon. But in fact, the pit had already been dug and was waiting for me to jump in. How about it, President Max? Saying clinked glasses with me, and the cufflinks under his long sleeves flashed inconspicuously. Are you interested in collaborating with someone surnamed Chu once? I smiled and toasted him back. Sane is a well-known powerful figure in Yancheng, who can cover the sky with one hand and turn things upside down. The system told me not to take risks anymore. But if you don't enter the tiger's den, how can you catch the tiger's cub? Then fine. Henry. My wrist was suddenly grabbed from behind, and the red wine in the glass spilled all over the floor. I clasped the base of the cup with my backhand and looked up infuriately. Henry. You can't promise him. 28. The word fine had already come out. In business, credit is the most important thing. How can one go back on one's word casually? But Sean stubbornly pulled me and said to Zane, if this business must be done, I'll do it. Henry. He is not capable enough and is prone to take extreme measures. Zane watched us struggle for a while with great interest. In the end, he handed his business card to Sean. He was indeed more interested in Sean, if it weren't for being wary of his background. But now that Sean dared to take it, it meant that he was willing to be on the same boat. Sean embraced contentedly Yolanda's shoulder and left the venue. I followed Sean and scolded, can you stop snatching my business? Snatching everything. Is it interesting? Sean suddenly stopped, causing me to bump into him directly. Henry. My thin body was suddenly embraced, and a warmth fell in the snow. I want to save you. Give me a chance. Okay? 29. People never know which will come first. Tomorrow or an accident. After Sean got involved, he became busy. I wanted to participate but was repeatedly shut out. Until that day, I received a call from Yolanda. Her voice was not as calm as that of the girl before. She extremely calmly told me that Zane had done too many despicable things over the years. Of course I know. She asked me, do you want to know the secret of Zane's plan this time? I said yes. She told me an address. She asked me to wait there on time at 10 o'clock tonight. At 9:30. I left with a dagger in my pocket. But when my car drove to the suburbs, I realized the brakes didn't work. 30. In an extremely panicked mood, I still steadied myself and quickly drove onto a road with almost no pedestrians and traffic. The system was also extremely anxious, but it was powerless about this matter. At this moment, Sean called. Henry. Where are you? I quickly described the incident and the address orally. Sean's side changed from initial anxiety and panic to calmly instructing what to do. And then to silence. The phone wasn't hung up. And he didn't speak anymore. The shared location was still on. Sean. I suppressed my trembling and called out. The car kept accelerating. And the steering wheel became more and more difficult to control. Even if I had died once, I was still afraid. Steady the steering wheel. Don't hit trees or railings. Wait for me. Sean's side became noisy. The wind and the sound of trees were so noisy that I could barely hear his words. There was a cliff ahead on this road. Below the cliff was the sea. I thought if I was buried there, it wouldn't be bad. Sean. The hand holding the steering wheel suddenly stopped shaking. I smiled and said, actually, I always wanted to tell you a secret. The navigation showed that the cliff was less than 5,000 meters away from my position. That secret is the secret I told you before I died last time. I didn't lie to you. 31 on the road where the sea could already be seen. A beam of light shone from behind. The person driving was very crazy. So crazy that he stepped on the accelerator to the bottom until sparks flew when it was side by side with my car. Henry. Jump over. Damn it. I said my last words too early. Sean was driving a convertible sports car without even wearing a helmet. He drove all the way at high speed. Jump. I'll catch you. He opened a small gap between the cars and actually stood up by stepping on the accelerator and reached out to me. 2 meters. 1 meter. At the most suitable distance. I opened the car door, as he instructed, and jumped over without hesitation. I threw myself into Sean's arms, and was firmly caught by him. My car drove straight towards the cliff and finally with a bang, it disappeared into the sea. Sean tightly clasped my waist and slammed on the brakes. Later, the piercing cold wind was so cold when it was blowing rapidly that it made me dizzy. I didn't hear clearly either what Sean said in my ear. 32 when I woke up again. I was on a soft big bed. Soft. Really very soft. I just wanted to turn over and roll. Suddenly, my ankle sank. There was a shackle on my foot. I looked down. Damn it. My clothes had been changed. Are you awake? At the moment the door was opened. I wanted to pretend to be dead. But Sean stared at me for 2 seconds and then started feeling all over my body. It should be fine. The doctor has seen it. It's just excessive shock. Henry? Talk to me. He lifted the shackle on my ankle, and then slid his hand to the inside of my thigh, where there was no fabric separating. Sean. Are you crazy? I am crazy. Sean lifted my chin with his hand and laughed angrily, waiting for 10 years for a cup of milk tea. Who isn't crazy? Remembering those things I teased him before. I shrank my leg and wanted to hide. Wife. Trying to run again? Sean clasped my waist, turned over, and pressed my hands on top of my head. I guess the cup of milk tea wanted to drink back, then was thick cream tea. 33 I am indeed Sean's sworn enemy. This dog tortured me without mercy at all. Tortured me to death. The next day, I couldn't get out of bed. But he was dressed neatly, and went to work beautifully. Sean. Take off the shackles. I shook my weak leg and kicked him. No. I'm afraid you'll run around again. I won't run. Also no. I'm worried. Sean. I'll definitely kill you sooner or later. The restless ankle was held. And the mouth was also blocked. A certain dog accepted it calmly. Well. Stay well. Let's see who does who tonight. Get lost. This shackle is not long and not short. So short that it can't even walk through the entire villa. I can't even go to the terrace. This thing also makes me unable to wear pants. I can only wear a long shirt. It almost made me so angry. Host. I'm sorry. The system suddenly popped up and apologized obsequious lie. I was puzzled. Are your systems so responsible? Yesterday's incident wasn't your fault either. The system said that if it took a look at the car in advance, it could see the problem. But this also has nothing to do with it at all. It wasn't done by it. Oh. What a good system. Third Typher. During the days when I was locked in the villa, I began to think. Why did Sean pull me to do that kind of thing? Because of hate? Because of love? Because of sympathy? Gratitude? Or guilt? Maybe. I haven't been loved by anyone since I was young. So I can't tell. I can't tell what kind of emotion is in his eyes when he looks at me. There's nothing wrong with living here except every night. As soon as Sean comes back, I have a feeling of reversing day and night. After it's over, I lie on the bed like a dying fish. My whole body is so soft as if I have no bones. I found out who tampered with the car, Sean said as he carried me to the bathroom. Zane? Or Yolanda? Since that accident happened that day, I couldn't get through Yolanda's phone no matter what. She had to be listed as one of the suspects by me. No. Sean hesitated for a moment and still said, "It's your second elder brother. Max." No. Is he sick? Why would he even kill his own family? Because you stole a lot of his limelight some time ago, including in the bidding, making your father very satisfied with you and furious with him. I guess this reason. What about Yolanda? Is she really innocent? That night, she and Zane set up an ambush on the mountain. There is a high probability that there will be no return. Wow. Then it's really a disaster that can't be escaped. Don't talk nonsense. My shoulder was bitten hard by the person behind me, and then licked like a kiss. I have collected evidence about your brother and submitted it to the court. I will always protect you. Henry. Trust me. 35. After being locked in Sean's house for a week, I began to be unable to sit still. Sean knew what I was worried about, but still wouldn't let me go. The time he came back changed from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and then to 11 o'clock. Even though he changed into a clean set of clothes before coming home every time, I would still ask at the moment before he blocked my mouth, "Today, whose blood is on you?" Sean never answered. Later, he was too lazy to change clothes. The smell of blood on his body became heavier and heavier, so strong that I couldn't tell whether it was his blood or someone else's. I was very panicked, on the verge of collapse. I know Sean is dealing with Zane and them. I also trust him, but I can't just watch. That night, I turned off all the lights in the entire villa. When Sean came back, he was stunned when he stood at the door. Through the moonlight outside the window, he saw it. Tools all over the floor. Sharp tools found from drawers. He was angry, grabbing the bodyguard outside the door. He asked what was going on. It has nothing to do with him. I staggered up from the corner of the sofa, picked up the red wine bottle and smashed it on the coffee table. I pointed the sharp end at him. "Sean, I don't want your protection anymore. Let me go. Don't move." Sean's face was gloomy, very different from usual. He directly stepped on the fragments all over the floor and walked straight towards me. Creak, perhaps there were fragments stuck in the soles of his shoes. But he didn't even frown at all. He kept approaching me step by step until there was no way to retreat. "Sean, don't come over anymore. This is not what I thought." He is crazier and more terrifying than me. I realized later that I wanted to throw away this broken bottle, but Sean suddenly grabbed my hand and stabbed it hard into his chest. When blood seeped out through his clothes, I was stunned. "Is this enough?" Sean held my hand and leaned against my shoulder, his breath weak. "I owe you, Henry. I'm sorry." 36. Oh me. The room was in chaos for a while, and soon a private doctor was called over. Sean's wound was very deep, but he didn't die. When I was guarding in front of his bed, my mind was full of scenes from my previous life. Saving me, questioning me, looking at me disappointed lie, killing me. Sean must have known something. The night was deep and the moonlight was like water. I guarded him for 2 nights. The first thing he did after waking up was to hold me and say with a choked voice, "I'm sorry. Did you remember everything?" Sean didn't deny it. 7 years is enough for the misunderstandings between us to become a gap. Maybe no one knows. When I returned to China at the beginning, Sean was my first friend. We admired each other, trusted each other, and competed fairly. I don't know from which year, month, And day it started. He brought a person covered in wounds and came to question me if it was done by me. For the first time I explained. But the evidence was conclusive. Those extremely real-looking forged evidence. Plus my not-so-clean background. He simply didn't choose to believe me at all. So from that day on, we became enemies. Later, I was too lazy to explain anymore. Once people's prejudices are formed, it is very difficult to eliminate. Getting close to Yolanda is because I thought only she believed in me. So for whatever reason, I followed her. But compared to love, what I crave more is that she is willing to stand by my side and believe me. 37. I said I like Yolanda. I lied to you. Sean began to explain. I didn't participate in your kidnapping in my previous life and I didn't know at all. The recording was used to deceive Zane. But I never thought it would put you to death. The day before I rushed to the basement, I received the news of the death of a friend again. No matter how I checked, all the evidence pointed to you. I thought you had many lives in your hands. I thought you killed too many innocent people. Unforgivable. I am very conflicted and painful. So that day I chose to let you die, and then follow you. My hand trembled unconsciously. Sean smiled. Who would have thought that in the end you confessed to me? 38. Why did Sean regain his memory? Because he also died. Just a little later than me. Sean. It's such a loss. After listening, my heart was even more blocked. It turns out that in my previous life, someone was secretly sowing discord between us. And that person lived better and longer than us. Zane. I will bring him to justice. Wait for me a little longer. Wait for me to come back. Let's start over. Okay? Sean held my hand and kissed it piously. I didn't pull my hand out. I just asked, do you love me? Sean was obviously stunned for a moment. If I can come back alive, then I love you. The shackles were not unlocked. On the day I went out after recovering from my injury, Sean still didn't make any promises to me in the end. But I held him back. I stood on tiptoe and hugged him. I love you. So I will wait for you. That time he was gone for a week. During this week, there were many things happening in Zhongcheng. Zane is a big shot with connections in both business and politics. It is not easy to catch him. I was trapped in the villa and got very little news. Finally, in the early morning of the 8th day, there was much less weight on my ankle. 39. Sean probably rushed back from Yancheng overnight. Travel stained. There is blood on his clothes. Zane's. He held my hand and put it close to his cheek. The night before the arrest warrant was issued, he wanted to commit suicide and end his life. But he didn't succeed. He will be punished by law. I was a little choked up and was suddenly hugged by Sean again. Henry. I love you. I did in the past. And I do now too. 40. Before Zane was arrested, a lot of his property was transferred to a woman's name. Yolanda. She didn't participate in Zane's dirty deeds at all and was protected by the Yolanda family. So when the scandal was exposed, she was unharmed. Sean and I chose to withdraw from this chaos. The Yolanda family may become the new power holders in Zhongcheng. The facts are already in front of us. On the day we moved out of Zhongcheng, Yolanda made a phone call. Henry. You guessed one thing wrong. She laughed. There was the whistling wind around her. I held the phone and looked back. Sure enough, I saw a person standing on the top of the tallest building in Zhongcheng, with long hair blowing in the wind, looking down at the whole city of Zhongcheng. In my previous life, I didn't choose Sean not because he was too ruthless, but because he wasn't ruthless enough to get rid of you and Zane for me. But fortunately, Zhongcheng still fell into my hands in this life. 41 for this collapsed plot. The system didn't offer an explanation. Just before leaving, he said earnestly, Henry, you must be happy in the future too. Why do I always call the system Daddy? Because I have never seen my mother. She died when I was born. At that time, my dad was in the underworld and deeply loved my mom. So he hated me to the core and sent me abroad when I was young. I lived under someone else's roof since I was a child, and never received any love. At this moment, my intuition tells me that only she would be so gentle and call me like this. Mom. Is it you? The entity of the wisp of white smoke of the system suddenly paused in the air. It was her. It really was her. I rushed over and wanted to touch her. But I couldn't touch anything. Tears suddenly slid down like a faucet that had been turned on, flowing down uncontrollably. Henry. Mom. Has to leave. Her voice was very pleasant and gentle. But so cruel. I can only accompany you up to here. Henry. From now on, your lover will accompany you. Mom believes in your choice. 40 to she's still left. A ball of white smoke dissipated in front of me and turned into a letter. It said, as if seeing you in person when reading this letter. Henry. Mom is very sorry that she can't participate in your growth. I'm also sorry to you. I didn't find you a good father. When you chose to use the chance of time travel to save your lover instead of your own childhood. Mom believed in your choice. Mom's wish is for you to be happy. The task is accomplished. So I have to leave. Don't cry. Mom will always love you and protect you in a place you can't see. I clutched that letter and cried for a long time in Sean's arms. He touched my head and said it was okay. From now on, he will always be with me. 43 later, Sean and I moved to Bicheng. There is heavy snow there and you can see the sea. The things in Zhongcheng have nothing to do with us anymore. It will get better development in the hands of someone who deeply loves it. While strolling on the golden beach, Sean suddenly asked me if I wanted to drink milk tea. I reported the menu familiarly. I want taro paste bobo, coconut and mango, strawberry milk jelly. Sean bought them all. When sitting on the beach and drinking halfway, I was in high spirits. He took my hand again and left several gentle kisses. With a warm smile, he said, don't drink too much during the day. Because when we go back at night, we still have to drink more. Wife,